I used to make shortbread at Balmoral Castle for Princess Diana. So the little shortbread cookies there.
For decades, one man held the monarchy's darkest secret. At 63, royal chef Darren McGrady finally breaks his silence about what he witnessed between Diana and the woman who would become queen. What he reveals about Camilla's treatment of Diana's memory is more shocking than anyone imagined. From private confessions in palace kitchens to the systematic erasure of Diana's presence, McGrady's truth exposes how power rewrites history. Warning: what you're about to hear will forever change how you view the crown. Trust in the kitchen. Buckingham Palace housed 20 chefs in 1982. Darren McGrady was the least important among them. Yet by 1997, he'd become Diana's closest confidant, a relationship that defied every royal precedent. Their connection began with simple gestures. While others maintained rigid protocol, Diana wandered the palace kitchens barefoot. She requested orange juice while staff prepared elaborate state dinners. She thanked everyone personally, turning hierarchy into humanity. She always said thank you. Sometimes she'd even help stack plates. The first real breakthrough came during summer at Balmoral. McGrady prepared apple pies under the watchful eye of the head pastry chef, when Diana appeared silently behind them. His face betrayed him. Shock, awe, complete paralysis. He remembers managing only hello and goodbye before turning scarlet. Diana's nightly ritual became legendary. Carrot, celery, apple juice to unwind after grueling days. She'd request yogurt and fruit snacks for herself and the boys. These weren't formal demands through intermediaries. Diana walked directly into kitchens, stating preferences conversationally. The intimate moments revealed her true character. McGrady discovered Diana's philosophy during one of their late-night conversations. Darren, you take care of all the fats, I'll take care of the carbs at the gym. His cooking transformed overnight. No more heavy creams, no rich sauces. Diana's health journey required his adaptation. Princess Diana didn't eat beef at all. Occasionally, she'd have lamb if she was entertaining. The kitchen became their sanctuary. When Diana lunched alone, she'd join McGrady at the work table, watching him cook. Sometimes arriving early because hunger couldn't wait for schedules. I remember she'd say, "Darren, I need a coffee." "Oh, I'll make it. You're busy. Would you like one?" There was Princess Diana making me a coffee. But beneath this warmth, shadows gathered. McGrady noticed changes in Diana's appetite that reflected deeper issues. The light-hearted woman who once raided kitchen fridges began picking at her food. Something wasn't right in paradise. Shadows in the palace. Arguments echoed through Buckingham's corridors with frightening regularity by the early 1990s. McGrady couldn't escape the tension as Diana's marriage crumbled publicly. When I was cooking for the princess, we'd cook sometimes for the princess on her own. Sometimes the boys would be eating separate, and then we'd have the staff to cook for as well. This separation told its own story. Royal marriage meant shared meals. Diana's solitary dining suggested deeper fractures. Charles attended official functions alone increasingly. Diana found herself orbiting the edges of her own marriage. The infamous affair cast its shadow everywhere. McGrady witnessed Charles's priorities shifting, state business taking precedence over family time. Diana's legendary warmth couldn't compete with the pull of a decades-old relationship resumed. The princess never stuck to the menu book. "Princess Diana, no way. I'm not in the mood for this today. I don't want this. Can I have liver and onions? Can I have stuffed bell pepper?" This impulsiveness revealed anxiety beneath the surface. Unlike the Queen's rigid adherence to schedules, Diana's food choices reflected emotional states. McGrady learned to read her moods through meal requests, comfort foods when struggling, lighter fare when determined to maintain control. The Camilla scandal erupted in 1992. Explicit recordings between Charles and Camilla Parker Bowles confirmed what palace whispers had suggested. Diana was competing for her husband's attention against a decades-long affair. There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded. These weren't just words for television interviews. The bulimia rumors proved devastatingly true. McGrady prepared meals knowing they might remain untouched. Diana struggled privately while maintaining public composure, attending state functions by day, battling eating disorders by night. Loud arguments between Charles and Diana became palace fixtures. McGrady often heard tension reverberating through walls, especially when Camilla's name arose. Questions haunted him. Why was this woman causing such pain? What hold did she maintain over Charles after his marriage? Diana's 1992 separation from Charles became official. McGrady watched as she left Buckingham Palace, moving to Kensington, with William and Harry. For him, an era ended, until the phone rang with an unexpected request. Diana wanted him as her personal chef. He accepted immediately. Kensington life proved vastly different, more relaxed, more personal, more human. Yet the shadow of Camilla lingered. Palace insiders whispered that Camilla celebrated the separation, allegedly telling friends, "He is officially mine now. He always has been." During late-night kitchen conversations at Kensington, vulnerability emerged more frequently. Diana needed listeners, not advice. McGrady provided silent support as she processed her changing world. Then came that kitchen confession he'd never forget. Still in her evening gown after a charity event, Diana lingered while McGrady cleaned dinner plates. "I've always known I will never be queen. That girl who took my husband will be queen someday." This insight into royal succession struck like lightning. How did Diana know what others missed? Her intuition about Camilla's ultimate ascension revealed deep understanding of palace dynamics. Love couldn't compete with tradition when tradition wore the face of an old flame. A meal. Uneaten. Sunday morning, August 31st, 1997, dawned peacefully at Kensington Palace. McGrady prepared Diana's typical light lunch. She'd return from Paris later, reuniting with William and Harry before their school return Monday. The menu reflected their developed understanding. Simple proteins, fresh vegetables, minimal fat. Diana's health journey meant every dish supported her well-being. McGrady took pride in crafting meals that nourished without compromising her hard-won relationship with food. The stuffed bell peppers were filled with all the goodies that she liked: zucchini, the mushrooms, and then some rice, just carbs, to help her through the day. This Sunday's preparation continued their established rhythm. Fresh ingredients sourced from palace gardens. Careful attention to presentation. Diana appreciated beautiful plating. Everything designed around her return from Paris, tired but happy for family time. McGrady finished preparations by early afternoon. The meal waited, ready for whenever Diana arrived. He felt satisfied knowing she'd enjoy her favorite dishes after the hectic Paris trip. 3 p.m. television interrupted the peaceful atmosphere. Breaking news flashed: Princess Diana in car crash. McGrady froze. Surely a mistake, poor journalism, sensationalized reporting. But the channels multiplied. BBC, ITN, CNN. The same devastating bulletin repeated endlessly. I thought it was a prank, but it was on every channel. Then I knew it was real. Reality settled like a suffocating weight. Paris tunnel, high-speed chase, paparazzi pursuit. Diana, 36, killed instantly. Dodi Fayed deceased. The driver, drunk. Bodyguard, critically injured but alive. The food McGrady prepared became history's poignant footnote. The last meal made for a princess who'd never return home. Everything sat exactly as placed. Stuffed peppers still warm, accompaniments perfectly arranged, smoked tomato sauce waiting to unite flavors, as Diana loved. I had her meal ready. It was just sitting there, untouched. The faxed death certificate arrived Monday morning. Reality couldn't be denied further. Staff at Kensington crumbled collectively. 20 years of service, countless meals, infinite conversations, all leading to this moment of finality. Diana's passing triggered unprecedented global mourning. Over 2.5 billion people watched her funeral worldwide. 60 million flowers transformed Kensington Palace gates into sea of grief. Elton John's Candle in the Wind became the unofficial anthem of loss. Palace sources reported Queen Elizabeth's decisive intervention. Camilla would not attend. The monarch understood public sentiment too well for such miscalculation. It's a good thing she listened. The world would never have forgiven her. Yet the absence wouldn't prevent Camilla from claiming her ultimate prize. Diana's prophecy began its fulfillment even as her coffin processed through London streets. The erasure begins. 8 years after Diana's death, on April 9, 2005, Charles married Camilla. McGrady, now running restaurants in America, couldn't watch. Distance offered no insulation from emotional impact. I didn't watch, I didn't go, I couldn't. My thoughts were with Diana the whole day. The ceremony felt like historical revision, legitimizing what had caused such destruction. McGrady understood monarchy's need for succession, yet couldn't reconcile personal loyalty with political necessity. They got what they wanted in the end, but the cost was enormous. Diana's prophecy materialized exactly as she'd feared in that Kensington kitchen. That girl became Duchess of Cornwall, then later, after systematic public rehabilitation, Queen Consort. Each step forward seemed to require Diana's memory stepping backward. Former palace colleagues began reporting disturbing changes. Camilla's arrival at Clarence House initiated what McGrady later termed systematic erasure. Diana's physical presence vanished first. Her pastel wall colors, gone, replaced by stronger hues. Her beloved English roses, removed for different arrangements. Every soft touch suggesting femininity disappeared systematically. It started subtly, almost imperceptibly, but to those who had known Diana, it was unmistakable. Staff loyal to Diana found themselves reassigned. Some chose resignation over serving Camilla. Diana's charitable priorities, once palace focus, shifted to Camilla's preferred organizations. The transformation reached beyond decoration into institutional memory. Kitchen practices Diana established faced immediate revision. McGrady's healthy menu innovations, carefully developed around Diana's recovery journey, gave way to traditional fare. Even the relaxed atmosphere Diana created fractured under formal protocol restoration. They used to be in the hallways, not just for staff, but for guests. Pictures of her with the boys, moments of joy, of humanity. Palace insiders described Camilla's visible discomfort encountering these images. No explicit orders followed, simply frowns, pauses, meaningful glances at staff. The message transmitted clearly without verbalization. Within months, photographs migrated from prominent corridors to less visible spaces. After 6 months, they reached private rooms. Within 3 years, even those disappeared completely. After about 3 years, that one vanished too. Each removal carried symbolic weight. Diana's friends found their access subtly restricted. Her charitable contacts received fewer invitations. People associated with her reign faced gradual marginalization. Former staff reported witnessing systematic discussions about updating decor whenever Diana references surfaced. Palace life under Camilla demanded forward momentum, leaving no space for backward glances. McGrady learned of these changes through carefully worded phone calls. And photograph moved during renovations. A charity event postponed indefinitely. Diana's favorite menu items removed from rotation. Small erasures accumulating into comprehensive rewriting. The transition felt like careful choreography, not dramatic gestures but persistent pressure. Camilla didn't announce campaigns against Diana's memory. She simply created environments where that memory couldn't comfortably exist. Sources close to palace operations suggested design consultants received specific instructions about avoiding reminiscent elements. Colors Diana favored became discouraged. Furniture arrangements she preferred faced systematic alteration. Even flower selections evolved away from her documented preferences. But these weren't mere renovations. To many who knew Diana, they represented calculated erasure of her influence. The warmth she'd brought to institutional spaces faced systematic replacement with cooler formality. Breaking point years of silent observation reached culmination during May 2023's coronation. McGrady supported the ceremony publicly. Monarchy required continuity despite personal conflicts. Yet his coronation tweets triggered immediate backlash from Diana supporters. "How could you celebrate the woman who caused such pain?" responded multiple accounts. McGrady found himself accused of betraying Diana's memory, a charge cutting deeper than critics realized. This pressure combined with cumulative knowledge finally broke protective silence. McGrady's response shocked royal observers worldwide. "She is pure evil." 4 words, unqualified, unbending. McGrady delivered this verdict about the Queen Consort without hesitation. For a man known for diplomatic discretion, the language stunned observers. He elaborated carefully, explaining this wasn't hyperbole. The calculated removal of Diana's influence, from charitable works to staff relationships to actual photographs, revealed something darker than redecorating. That's the first thought that came to my mind when I learned everything that had been done to erase Diana from the very home she helped transform. Television appearances followed. McGrady, typically measured in public statements, spoke freely about palace dynamics previously protected by discretion. Each revelation peeled back layers of official narrative. Diana made the palace feel alive. There was warmth in the halls, kindness. Camilla's arrival extinguished that light entirely. Press conferences drew unprecedented attention. Journalists pressed for specifics about photograph removals. McGrady provided detailed accounts, timeframes, specific images, staff reactions, systematic patterns of erasure. How can someone be so threatened by a memory? It wasn't even a woman anymore, just photographs. Even those proved too much. The internet erupted. Diana supporters celebrated validation of decades-old suspicions. Critics questioned timing and appropriateness. Palace machinery remained characteristically silent. McGrady's assessment reached beyond personal opinion into moral judgment. He'd witnessed two royal figures intimately: Diana's authentic humanity versus Camilla's calculated environment management. She never lashed out. Diana was hurting but still kind. Even on worse days, she treated others with warmth. Palace officials maintained never complain, never explain doctrine. Yet privately, royal commentators acknowledged unprecedented challenges. Usually, servant testimonies lacked credibility, too distant from decision-making. McGrady's proximity to Diana granted unique authority. His revelations threatened carefully constructed narratives about Camilla's rehabilitation. Public relations strategies developed over decades faced demolition through first-hand accounts of memory erasure. I supported the coronation because institutions matter more than individuals. But moving forward doesn't require burying truth. The four words resonated beyond their literal meaning, representing accumulated frustration from all who felt Diana's treatment by official systems remained unjust. McGrady became inadvertent spokesman for unresolved grief. Echo of truth. McGrady's revelations triggered seismic shifts in public discourse about monarchy, memory, and justice. What began as controversial tweets evolved into sustained truth-telling campaign, with the former chef positioned as unlikely guardian of historical honesty. I owe her that. After everything she endured, the least I can do is protect her story. All of it, even the uncomfortable parts. Media outlets competed for exclusive interviews. Each session revealed additional layers of palace operations previously hidden from public view. McGrady maintained his central assertion. Camilla's actions constituted deliberate erasure of Diana's influence. Parliament experienced subtle tremors as questions emerged about monarchy's accountability mechanisms. Though no formal investigations followed, informal discussions acknowledged gaps between public perception and palace realities. McGrady rejected these characterizations. This isn't about psychology. This is about truth. Diana deserves honest memory, not sanitized history. His assessment of Camilla remained unwavering despite criticism. Palace sources attempted character assassination, suggesting McGrady harbored professional jealousy or sought financial gain. These attempts largely failed. McGrady's long silence and delayed disclosure enhanced credibility. Meanwhile, grassroots support grew exponentially. Diana charities received donation increases. Memorial events attracted renewed attendance. Public sentiment demonstrated enduring connection to the late princess, amplified by McGrady's revelations. Former royal staff began emerging from silence, emboldened by McGrady's example. Not all confirmed photograph removals or systematic erasure, but enough corroborated institutional changes post-Diana to suggest patterns McGrady described. Palace found itself in unprecedented position. Responding seemed to legitimize accusations. Silence suggested potential truth. The dilemma exposed modern monarchy's vulnerability to insider testimony. His four-word assessment became shorthand for broader questions about power, memory, and institutional integrity. Scholars began examining parallels. how institutions manage problematic legacies, whether erasure serves stability, if truth-telling threatens necessary continuity. The controversy reignited debates about monarchy's contemporary relevance. McGrady inadvertently provided ammunition for Republicans while simultaneously affirming royalty's human complexity. His revelations complicated simplified narratives on all sides.
It was a convenient place to stay. My judgment was probably coloured by my tendency to be too honourable.
The story of Prince Andrew has come to a quiet, serious end. Once, he lived in a big palace, wore fancy clothes, and had everything he wanted. People bowed when he walked by. He was a prince, someone many looked up to. But behind the fancy doors, something dark was happening. Things he did, things people didn't know about, were kept hidden for a long time. But the truth doesn't stay hidden forever. Slowly, it all came out. People started asking questions. More and more people came forward. The law looked into it. And in the end, the judge made a big decision. Prince Andrew would go to prison for the rest of his life. No more palace, no more crown. Just a small, cold prison cell. It's a big fall for someone who once had so much. A sad end, but a strong message. Even those who seem the most powerful must face the truth one day. His story is no longer about being a prince. It's about what happens when you break the rules and think you can get away with it. Now that chapter is closed. Background on the royal chef. Her name is Claire Davison. You probably hadn't heard of her before. Most people hadn't. Claire wasn't born into fame, and she didn't chase it either. She grew up in a quiet little town in Devon, England, where her love for cooking started in her grandmother's small kitchen. There was always something in the oven. Fresh bread, homemade pies, cookies with golden edges, and young Claire, with flour on her cheeks, soaked it all in. After high school, Claire pursued culinary studies in London. She wasn't the loudest student in her class, but she had something special. Patience, care, and a deep love for creating comfort through food. She didn't dream of being on TV or running a Michelin-starred restaurant. All she wanted was to feed people and make them happy. One day, a friend in the hospitality industry passed along her name to someone connected to the royal household. At the time, Princess Charlotte had just turned 1, and the palace was looking for a new chef who could not only cook, but also bring a nurturing, homey touch to the royal kitchen. Claire was interviewed, tested, and soon after, hired. She was just 29. Her role wasn't just to prepare meals, it was to create an environment of calm, nourishment, and care inside a world of high pressure and strict rules. Claire handled daily meals for Princess Charlotte, but also cooked for Prince William, Princess Kate, and occasionally other family members. Her days began at 5 a.m. and often ended past midnight. She prepared everything from oatmeal with organic honey to elegant 3-course dinners. Every single meal had to meet royal standards. Ingredients were strictly organic. Allergies and dietary guidelines had to be double-checked. Snacks for playdates had to be both healthy and protocol approved. The kitchen wasn't just a workplace, it was a world of precision. But what set Claire apart wasn't just her skill, it was the quiet bond she built with Charlotte. Over the years, the young princess grew fond of her. Claire became more than a staff member. She was a familiar face, a comforting voice, someone who always remembered her favorite flavors. Charlotte loved Claire's strawberry scones the most. They were soft, buttery, and topped with a light dusting of sugar. Charlotte once whispered, "These are better than the ones at Highgrove." And Claire held on to those words. Literally, she scribbled them down and tucked the note inside her apron pocket for years. At public events, visiting diplomats and palace guests praised Claire's food. "Elegant but warm," one guest said of her rosemary chicken. Even senior staff members complimented her ability to stay calm under pressure. Claire never made herself the center of attention. She let her food speak for her. So, when news spread that she had been let go, people were shocked. The firing incident. Claire's dismissal came suddenly in late October last year. There was no announcement, no formal statement from the palace. She simply disappeared from the royal kitchen's staff list. Just like that, after 7 years of loyal service, she was gone. The people who worked with her were confused and heartbroken. She wasn't just a colleague. She was someone they looked up to. One staff member later said anonymously, "We were told she wouldn't be returning." No explanation. It felt wrong. Whispers and rumors began to circulate online. Some sources claimed that there was a disagreement between Claire and a senior royal staffer over scheduling or food handling procedures. Others suggested a change in palace management led to a reshuffling of roles. One tabloid hinted at Claire questioning new ingredient sourcing practices, something that may have upset higher-ups. Of course, none of these reasons were confirmed. The royal family remained silent, as they usually do with internal matters. Claire also didn't speak publicly, not at first. But a friend close to her told a local newspaper, "She's devastated. She gave that place everything." It's hard to imagine the emotional toll it must have taken. Claire had dedicated 7 years of her life to that job. She missed birthdays, holidays, and special moments with her own family to be present for someone else's. She watched Charlotte grow up. She put her heart into every dish, and in return, she was quietly let go. Sometimes it's not about how things end. It's about how they're ended. Claire didn't get closure. And yet, what came next would change her life in ways no one could have predicted. The turning point. Going viral. A few weeks after her dismissal, Claire returned to her childhood home in Devon. She spent her days in the quiet countryside, away from the noise and spotlight. Her mother's small cottage had the same kitchen where she first learned to cook. That's where she started baking again, just for herself. Then, one chilly evening in November, she had an idea. She decided to film herself making the strawberry scones that Princess Charlotte loved so much. It wasn't a planned production, just her, a wooden spoon, and her old kitchen table. She opened her phone, hit record, and said softly, "This is the scone recipe that once made a little princess smile." She uploaded the video to TikTok and went to bed. By the time she woke up the next morning, the video had exploded, over 600,000 views overnight. People couldn't stop watching. By lunchtime, the view count had crossed 2 million. Comments came flooding in. "This woman cooked for royalty and got fired? Shame on them. She's so wholesome. I could watch her bake all day. Protect Claire at all costs. She's our queen now. Someone get her a cooking show, stat." The video wasn't flashy. There were no fancy edits, no dramatic music, just Claire, gently talking through her recipe, telling little stories between steps. That's what made it magical. It felt real, honest, healing. News outlets quickly caught on. Headlines appeared everywhere. "Fired royal chef goes viral making Princess Charlotte's favorite scones." From Kensington Palace to TikTok fame, meet Claire Davison. Food bloggers recreated her recipe and tagged her. YouTubers reacted to her video. Even celebrity chefs mentioned her name during interviews. And Claire? She couldn't believe it. "I didn't expect anyone to care," she later said in a podcast. "I just missed baking." But people did care. They connected with her story, with her kindness, with her quiet strength. What she's doing now. Today, Claire is thriving. She now has over 1.8 million followers on TikTok, 900,000 on Instagram, and her YouTube channel, Claire's Cottage Kitchen, just passed 500,000 subscribers. She posts 2 videos a week, each one simple, cozy, and full of warmth. Her most popular video to date is titled, "Princess Charlotte's Favorite Pancakes." It's been viewed over 5 million times. But Claire hasn't let the fame change her. She still records in her mother's kitchen. The wooden table she uses wobbles slightly. Her dog Barney sometimes barks in the background. And Claire always smiles through it all. It's what makes people come back. Not for perfection, but for peace. Earlier this year, Claire announced her first cookbook, From the Palace to the Pantry. It's filled with easy recipes, childhood favorites, and heartwarming notes. Pre-orders sold out in less than a week. She's also hosting online baking classes and planning a small kitchenware line featuring tea towels and rolling pins. There's even talk of a Netflix cooking series, though Claire hasn't confirmed it yet. "I'm just taking it one day at a time," she told her fans during a live Q&A. "As long as I'm feeding people and bringing comfort, I'm happy." More than anything, Claire's story is one of resilience. She didn't get bitter. She didn't lash out. She chose kindness, and the world gave it back in return. Prince Andrew's story is no longer one of royalty and riches, but of consequences and truth. What happened will be remembered for a long time. Not because he was a prince, but because even the highest walls couldn't hide the truth forever. If you want to stay updated on powerful stories like this, real, honest, and unforgettable, make sure to subscribe. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss what comes next.
The People's Princess is dead across the country, across the world.
I think when you are bereaved at a very young age, anytime really, but particularly at a young age, I can resonate closely to that. You feel pain like no other pain, and you know that in your life it's going to be very difficult to come across something that's going to be even worse pain than that.
The story of Princess Diana's death is one that touched millions of hearts around the world. Her tragic passing in 1997 left an indelible mark not just on the royal family, but on the public as well. Her two sons, Prince William and Prince Harry, were at the center of this tragedy, and they experienced grief in ways few can truly understand. But for years, Prince William has remained notably silent about his mother's death, choosing not to publicly discuss his feelings or the impact it had on him. This silence has intrigued many people, sparking questions about why he chooses not to openly share his emotions regarding such a pivotal moment in his life. William's grief journey. The death of Princess Diana in 1997 left an indelible mark on the royal family, particularly on her two young sons, William and Harry. At just 15 years old, William found himself in an impossible position. His world had been shattered, yet he was still expected to fulfill his duties as a royal. Grief, for William, couldn't simply be dealt with in private. It had to coexist with the very public role he played as the future king. One of the most striking moments of this struggle came during his mother's funeral. The world watched in shock as William, along with his younger brother Harry, walked behind Diana's coffin during the procession. This was a public display of mourning like no other. For the young princes, it was a deeply emotional moment that required them to put on a brave face and fulfill a royal duty. Imagine the weight on their shoulders, grieving the loss of their mother while knowing millions of people were watching, their every step scrutinized by the press. For William, this wasn't just a royal duty. It was a moment that forced him to balance his personal grief with the expectations placed on him as the future monarch. As he walked behind the coffin, there were mixed emotions: sorrow, anger, and perhaps a deep sense of duty to his mother's memory. While the world mourned Diana, for William, this was a personal, raw experience that few could truly understand. Over the years, William has rarely spoken about his grief in public. However, when he has shared his feelings, it's been an emotional experience for both him and his audience. In a 2017 BBC documentary marking 20 years since his mother's death, William opened up about the confusion and pain he felt during those early days of grief. He described how, at the time, he couldn't fully process what had happened. Like many who experience sudden loss, William was left questioning why this had to happen to him and his family. "I remember just feeling completely numb, disorientated, dizzy," William said in the documentary. For a young boy of 15, the loss of his mother in such a violent and sudden manner was almost too much to comprehend. The emotional confusion he felt then was something that stayed with him for years as he struggled to make sense of the pain. It was clear that, for William, the grief wasn't something that could easily be explained or understood in words. It was a process, one that would take years to unravel. This deep emotional conflict continued for years as William tried to navigate life as both a grieving son and a future king. In interviews, he has often mentioned how difficult it was to reconcile the private side of his emotions with the public role he was expected to play. There's a powerful contrast in these reflections. On one hand, he was a young man mourning the loss of his mother, and on the other, he was part of the royal family, expected to uphold the dignity and traditions of his position. The tension between these two sides of his life was undoubtedly overwhelming at times. Despite the public nature of his life, Prince William has always emphasized the importance of privacy in his grief journey. In fact, he has often spoken about how critical it was for him to have space away from the media and public attention during those early days after Diana's death. Obviously, back then, we didn't have smartphones or constant media coverage. We were fortunate to have the privacy to mourn, to collect our thoughts, and to have that space away from everybody, William said in the 2017 BBC documentary. This privacy, granted by the royal family, was a rare gift. It allowed William to process his emotions without the added pressure of being in the public eye. In many ways, it gave him the chance to just be a boy who had lost his mother, rather than a royal figure who was expected to be strong for the public. This sanctuary was invaluable as he navigated the complexities of grief, away from the constant scrutiny of the media and the royal duties that often left him little time for himself. William has mentioned that the role of his grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II, in helping shield him from the overwhelming media coverage during this time was crucial. In one interview, he recalled how his grandmother made an effort to protect him and Harry from seeing the intense media frenzy surrounding their mother's death. It was a tough decision for the Queen, balancing her responsibilities as monarch with her love and care for her grandchildren, but it was one that gave William and Harry a chance to mourn privately. Another aspect of William's grief journey that he shared with the public is how he found solace in nature, especially in the Scottish outdoors. After hearing the devastating news of his mother's passing, William was at Balmoral Castle, the royal family's residence in Scotland. In a speech many years later, William spoke about how the Scottish countryside offered him a sense of peace and refuge during those dark days. The service at Crathie Kirk that very morning, and in the dark days that followed, I found comfort and solace in the Scottish outdoors, William reflected. The beauty of the Scottish landscape provided him with an emotional escape, a place where he could process his feelings in peace, away from the chaos of royal duties and the media frenzy. For William, the hills and forests of Scotland became more than just a backdrop for his grief. They became a sanctuary, a place where he could feel a little closer to his mother and a little further from the overwhelming sadness that clouded his life at the time. This connection to Scotland remains significant for William even today. As an adult, he continues to speak fondly of the country, acknowledging that it holds both some of his happiest memories and some of his saddest. It was in Scotland that he first met his wife, Kate Middleton, and it remains a place where he and his family retreat for both joy and reflection. But the bond that William feels to Scotland, especially in the wake of his mother's death, is undeniable. The outdoor spaces offered him a break from the demands of royal life and gave him a safe place to process his grief. Changing narrative. Over time. For most of Prince William's life, the public rarely heard him speak about the tragic death of his mother, Princess Diana. His reluctance to address such a personal and painful loss became one of the mysteries of his royal life. Why did the heir to the British throne, often seen as open and approachable, choose to stay quiet about the death of the woman who had shaped much of his early years? For years, this silence sparked much speculation and curiosity among royal watchers and the general public. What was really going on behind closed doors? In the years following Diana's tragic passing in 1997, William, then just 15 years old, seemed to bury his emotions. Like many people who experience such an overwhelming loss at a young age, he was left to grapple with grief in a deeply private way. The media, in particular, was eager for any hint of what the prince might say about his mother's death. But William, who was just stepping into the role of a young royal, had other priorities. His focus, understandably, was on dealing with his grief in private. In the early years, his silence could have been attributed to a combination of personal choice and the nature of the royal family's approach to public life. The royal family, historically, has not been known for openly discussing personal emotions or grief. The Windsors, often seen as the epitome of stoicism, maintained a strong sense of duty, which meant that personal suffering was rarely displayed for public consumption. For William, this cultural expectation likely added to the weight of his grief. How could he speak openly about his mother when there were so many royal duties to attend to, and so many eyes watching him? However, as time passed, something began to shift. It's important to understand that Prince William, like many others who experience intense grief, likely found that bottling up emotions and avoiding the topic of his mother's death was not sustainable in the long term. And while he may not have been ready to open up immediately after Diana's death, it was clear that the pain of losing her would not simply fade away. It wasn't until much later that William began to speak more openly about his loss, showing a vulnerability that, in many ways, marked a significant departure from the usual royal behavior. It's important to highlight how, over time, William began to understand that sharing his grief wasn't a sign of weakness, but a sign of strength. Slowly, but surely, he began to break his silence in public forums, making it clear that the boy who once kept his emotions hidden was now ready to talk about the pain he had carried for so many years. One of the most notable moments of this shift came when William joined his brother Harry in 2017 for a BBC documentary called Diana, 7 Days. This was a landmark moment because, for the first time, the two brothers were able to speak openly about their mother's death and the grief they had experienced in the years since. In the documentary, William admitted that he still struggled with the pain of her loss, revealing that even as an adult, the emotional scars remained. He also acknowledged how his mother's death had affected him in more profound ways than he had been able to express before. This was not the typical stoic royal response we were accustomed to seeing. It was raw, honest, and incredibly moving. But perhaps the most significant change in William's approach to discussing his grief came through his active involvement in mental health advocacy. In 2016, Prince William, along with his wife, Kate Middleton, and his brother Harry, launched the Heads Together campaign, a groundbreaking initiative aimed at promoting mental health awareness and encouraging open conversations about mental well-being. The campaign's core message was clear. It's okay to talk about your feelings, especially when you're going through tough times. For William, Heads Together represented more than just a charitable cause. It became an outlet for him to channel his own experiences of loss, grief, and mental health challenges into something positive. His decision to speak out about his own struggles, particularly his battle with grief after losing Diana, served as an inspiration to many. It also sent a powerful message to others who were silently suffering from their own mental health challenges. If the Duke of Cambridge, a member of the royal family, could talk about his emotions, then surely others could too. Through the Heads Together campaign, William made it clear that mental health was not a subject to be avoided or swept under the rug. He spoke about the importance of mental health care, particularly for men, who often feel societal pressure to hide their emotions and act tough. As part of the campaign, William, Harry, and Kate engaged in open discussions with mental health professionals and those who had personally experienced mental health challenges, offering both a platform for discussion and a sense of solidarity. William's personal involvement in Heads Together has undoubtedly helped shift the narrative around mental health within the royal family and beyond. He shared his experiences with the public, including how he had struggled with his emotions in the aftermath of Diana's death. He admitted that, for many years, he didn't allow himself to process his feelings properly. This, he explained, led to long periods of stress and anxiety, which is not uncommon for those who experience a deep and unresolved loss. In the years since, William has continued to be a vocal advocate for mental health, speaking candidly about the importance of dealing with grief in a healthy and constructive way. His openness about his own struggles has been a powerful example for others, especially for men who may feel societal pressure not to express vulnerability. By sharing his own grief journey, William has helped make the topic of mental health more approachable and less stigmatized, and in doing so, he has set an example for countless individuals who are navigating their own emotional challenges. William's evolving narrative, from silence to openness, has shown the world that it is okay to face difficult emotions and share them with others. He has gradually broken down the barriers that once kept him silent about his mother's death, showing that even someone in his position is not immune to the complexities of grief and loss. It is a journey that many can relate to, whether they are public figures or private individuals. William's decision to share his grief publicly is a reflection of the changing attitudes toward mental health and emotional well-being in society. What once was considered a private matter is now being discussed openly, thanks in no small part to William's efforts to break the stigma surrounding mental health. By opening up about his own experience, William has not only honored the memory of his mother, Princess Diana, but he has also given others the courage to confront their own emotional pain and find healing in the process. As we look to the future, William's ongoing work in mental health advocacy will undoubtedly continue to inspire others to share their stories and seek help when needed. Through his example, he has shown that while grief is a deeply personal journey, it's also a shared experience that connects us all. And in that shared experience, there is hope, healing, and strength. Insights into William's silence. Prince William's silence on the death of his mother, Princess Diana, has long been a subject of intrigue and speculation. While it's easy to assume that his quietness stems from simply being a private person, the reality is much deeper. There are multiple reasons behind why William has chosen not to openly discuss such a tragic event in his life. His silence isn't just about keeping personal emotions hidden. It's also about a mix of personal emotional considerations, strategic image management, and a deep respect for how grief affects individuals in unique ways. First and foremost, Prince William's decision to maintain privacy can be traced back to personal emotional reasons. The death of a parent, especially at a young age, is an overwhelming experience. William was just 15 when his mother passed away, and the emotional toll it took on him was immense. It's entirely understandable that, after such a traumatic event, he would feel the need to guard his emotions and avoid exposing them publicly. Grief, particularly when it involves the loss of someone as beloved as Princess Diana, is something that can't easily be shared in the public eye, especially when it's accompanied by the scrutiny and pressure that comes with being a member of the royal family. As William himself has expressed in various interviews, the initial shock left him feeling confused and disoriented, not knowing how to process such deep sorrow. For many people in similar situations, it's a natural instinct to retreat into privacy during such an emotionally charged time, and William's decision to do so was likely driven by the need to protect his emotional well-being. At the same time, Prince William's silence can also be seen as part of the royal family's strategy when it comes to managing their public image. The royal family has always been under intense public scrutiny, and their personal lives are often viewed through the lens of duty and tradition. By remaining somewhat private about his grief, William was, perhaps unconsciously, aligning with the royal tradition of keeping personal matters out of the public spotlight. Royals have long been expected to maintain a composed and controlled image, even in the face of tragedy. In the case of Diana's death, while the public mourned with the family, there was also an expectation that William, as the future king, would remain strong and dutiful. Public displays of grief were complicated by his royal status, and the family often finds itself in the delicate balance between showing emotion and fulfilling their royal roles. This sense of duty likely influenced William's decision to stay silent, at least publicly, as he navigated the immense personal loss while fulfilling his responsibilities. However, there is another layer to his silence: respect for the grieving process. Grief is not a one-size-fits-all experience. It affects people in different ways, and no two people cope with loss the same way. For Prince William, grieving his mother was undoubtedly a personal and private journey. He has been open about how difficult it was to find comfort in such a painful time, but he also emphasized how important it was for him to deal with his emotions on his own terms. This respect for personal grief is something that many can relate to, regardless of their status. People who go through profound loss often find solace in solitude or in other ways that may not be visible to the public eye. William's choice to not discuss his mother's passing immediately, or to do so selectively, highlights the understanding that grieving is something deeply personal. It's not something that can always be shared, especially when the world is watching. William's approach to grief, especially over the years, has been more about quietly honoring his mother's memory and legacy, rather than dwelling on the pain. He has started to speak about her death more openly in recent years, especially through his work with mental health initiatives like Heads Together. This shift has allowed him to frame his grief in a way that could help others who are struggling with loss, making it a way to connect rather than to publicly mourn. In doing so, he has gradually opened up about his emotions, but in a way that feels right for him, slowly and on his own terms. This speaks to a larger point about the royal family's evolving attitude toward mental health and emotions, with William becoming more of an advocate for others who may be grieving in silence, just as he did. The bottom line is that Prince William's silence about his mother's death should not be seen as indifference or avoidance. Instead, it reflects a complex mix of emotional protection, royal duty, and respect for the unique ways people grieve. It's a reminder that grief is not something that can always be shared in a public space. It's deeply personal and varies greatly from person to person. As time has passed, William and Harry would continue to carry the weight of their mother's death with them. For William, his grief was something he buried deep within himself for a long time. As a teenager, he felt the pressure to be strong and composed, both for his family and for the public. His duty as a future king meant that he couldn't afford to let his emotions take over. It was only much later, as an adult, that he began to open up more about his grief and the impact it had on him. The royal family's response to Diana's death was shaped by a complex mixture of personal grief and public duty. While the Queen's efforts to protect William and Harry were crucial during the early days, it was clear that there was no easy way for the young princes to process such a monumental loss. The experience of grief, especially for someone as young as William, is never linear. It is a journey that is personal, sometimes private, and often difficult to navigate. And for William, as he later acknowledged, it would be a long time before he could fully process the depth of his loss and what it meant for his life moving forward. Now, we want to hear your thoughts. Do you think Prince William's silence was the best way to cope with his grief? Or do you believe he should have spoken more openly about it? Drop a comment below to share your perspective. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with others who might find this story just as captivating. Be sure to subscribe to our channel so you never miss out on more royal insights.